Well, good morning. My name is David Hunsinger, and welcome to this Wednesday, February 17th version of Keystroke Live. Thank you for attending. Remember, Keystroke Live is every Wednesday, same time, same place, same login information. Uh, February is kind of report month. Uh, just to give you a little bit of a heads up, I think March is going to be guest month, and we will hear from 24/7 Cart, a shopping cart company we've just started working with. We will also hear from Mercury to about the ISC 250, and they'll give us an update on where that stands and how it will get updated remotely. And then hopefully we'll also hear from the folks at Cayenne about what's going on with the Genius. So stay tuned for upcoming sessions. This morning I am talking about report filters, and a lot of it is very consistent with how other operators and logical conditions work. Some of it is very specific to Keystroke, though, on how we do it, that we've set it up to be very configurable, very flexible. I always like to think of it as you're narrowing down results on a report. So often I'll run a report and it's like, whoa, there's 20 pages. Now let's set a filter to figure out how I want to narrow that down so I can see more of the specific information I'm looking for. So it's a great way to go in and zoom in on a specific problem or something you're looking for. A lot of times, one of my things I say is retailers love a rut. So when you get a report that is perfect for a retailer, you can use it as a saved setting or set it up in a queue. Then they never have to think about it. They can just go click that button, and you're going to hear more about the report queues and saved settings from Lynn next week. When an end user or a dealer calls in and is saying, how do I get this report? We train people here. Basically, you start running reports, you start testing different filters, and really that's all we do. We don't have a big flow chart on this is this and this is that. So just remember, it's the report filters. It's something that you can test. You can be creative. You can try different things to see how it works out. Run it to the screen. Do it for a small date range. That's whenever I'm helping an end user with a report and they say, oh, well, I'm doing last year's taxes. I'm like, well, let's take a week and run it until we get what we want, and then you can run the report that takes 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever to collect all the data. So sometimes narrowing it down helps you zone in on specifically what you are trying to get. But really, when you call us and ask us, we're just testing. We're just, oh, let's try this, let's try that, let's see what works. So I'm going to talk about entering filters. There's a lot of different filter fields. You typically are pressing F2 or insert, and it pops up a list of what's available. You can select that list, and it'll show you all the fields. And then you do some kind of operator or condition on the fields, and I'm going to jump in and show you what that looks like. There's basically three types of what we call operators. Logical, which is the most frequently used, like customer number equals 4. I'll use that today, so I'll get everything for customer number 4. Or I want invoices for customer number 4 or customer number 5. So you can say customer 4 or customer 5. You can also use arithmetic, plus, minus, multiply, divide, powers, that kind of thing. And then there's some general ones like the backslash means literal. So if you are searching for, say, an equal sign that you have in a product code, you can say contains, that's a star, and then backslash equals. And so it won't think of that equals as star equals. It'll think of it as contains the equals character. So the parentheses for grouping, and then the brackets for the or braces for the actual variable fields that Keystroke assigns. So a lot of information there, but let's jump into Keystroke here. And I need to switch my screen sharing. And we will go to Keystroke. I will plug in my password because we are living in a world of security right now. And just I'll kind of start with some simple sales transactions report. Here is just the basic sales invoice report. And when I run that to the screen, and this is just the tutor data I'm using, I get my list of transactions. So simple report, pops it right up there. Now let's say I'm going to do sales transactions. I'm select that, and I am going to go into my transaction filter. So this is with this, and different reports are going to have different filters set up differently. So the key word is when you see filter, you know that's going to be to do something to help you narrow down the results. So I'm selecting transaction filter. Here I'm just hitting insert or F2. I always like F2 because I'm left-handed. And then I'm looking at the sales invoice, and I am going to go with the, let's say the total is greater than $100. And I could do 100, I could do 100.00. I'll just keep it as 100. And then I'm just going to select OK. You see, it kind of gives me an indication on the screen of what I'm doing, and that's sales transaction is kind of what that STH is telling us, and then totals the field. So now when I run this report, if you remember, see I got a lot fewer transactions, and I'm only getting the transactions for over $100. I could also say, oh, I want them only for clerk 1 or 2, and why don't we add that other condition and say over $100 and clerk 2, so then I should hopefully only get 2. So I'm going to go back up to my transaction filter. I've got that in there. Now I'm just going to put and then I'm going to hit insert or F2 again and say invoice, and then I'm just going to press the letter C a few times and say clerk number equals 2. Now hopefully that was clerk number and not salesperson number, but we will see how this works out. And I run this report again, and I get it just for those 2 clerks. So I'm clerk number 2 and transactions over $100. I get a lot of questions on, oh, well, is it and or is it or? So what happens if we go in here and say transactions last used, and I'm going to select this filter, and you see it uses the keystroke shortcut of ampersand, ampersand. So it took out what I typed in as and put in ampersand, ampersand. Now, so for or, so for or, I can come in here, and you see if I try to delete one of the ampersands, I just move right here and hit the delete key. It pulls out both of them because those have to go together. Now I could put in the bar character twice, that's above the backslash. That's what stands for or I could just put space or space and do OK. So you see when I did that, if you see on the screen here, it did put in the bar character for or. Does that so that if you're doing a lot of conditions, it doesn't spread it out. So now this is over $100 or clerk number 2. So I could get a lot of transactions under $100 that were entered by clerk number 2, but I'll get transactions over $100 that were entered by clerk number 1 because of the or condition. So when I run this, So you see I got like one for 175, but it was clerk number 2. So it gave me everything that clerk number 2 entered or everything that was over $100. And a lot of times people say, oh, well, when do I use and? When do I use or? A lot of it is just testing. Examples of and are, oh, you know, I've got 1,000 customers, but I want to see transactions from these 4 customers. You can do customer 100 or customer 500 or customer 700 or customer 900. So it'll give you any transactions from any of those. If you do customer 100 and customer 500, you won't get anything because none of them are like that. And also remember, you can do contains, that's the star. So if I did that same report, and I won't actually run this because I don't have it set up there, I'm just going to hit insert, say sales invoice, go to my clerk number, and then I can use a star, which means contains 1. Well, that's going to give me clerk number 1, but it'll also give me clerk number 10 and 11 and 12 and 21 and 41. So anyone that has a 1 in it. So it differs saying contains 1 versus saying equals 1. So if I do clerk equals 1, I'll only get it from clerk 1. Just trying to give you some examples of how all this works. I'm going to jump to a different report here, the database customer report. And here I'm running a phone list, and I'm just going to go ahead and run that. And it's a good phone list, but you see I've got a couple there that don't have phone numbers. There's out of state and walk-in. And well, I don't really want to list these because I'm giving this to one of my employees to do some telemarketing. So I can come in here to customer and go into my filter. Again, hit insert, say customer, and then I can move down or I can hit the letter P. It'll take me down there. Select phone, and I'm just going to say is greater than 0. That means it's not blank. So I can go and select that, and now when I run the report, same report, but it's removed those blank phone numbers. If you're doing an address list, you can do zip code greater than 0000 and less than 9999. So it'll only get, and then you could also say, and address is not blank. And rather than just talk about it, let's run it. So if I change my form to say an address list, and I'm just going to turn off my filter. So when I run this report, my address list, I didn't run it before because it's all kind of small text, but you see there's a couple of blanks here that maybe I don't want in my address list report, or if I'm printing, using this to print mailing letters or create letters. So I can come in here and I can say my filter, I'm just going to hit insert here, select customer, and then I'm just going to press the letter Z to go down to zip and say greater than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I hit insert again and select zip. And then I'm going to say is less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 99999, so that I don't want foreign people. I don't want funny zip codes. And then I'm going to hit insert again and say customer and just select address is greater than 0. I use greater than 0 a lot. You can do, I believe it is equal sign exclamation point means is not blank. But I know greater than 0, use period there, greater than 0 always works. And so when I go and run this report, it leaves out the people that don't have address, where the address line was blank or where the zip code did not exist, or maybe it was Canadian and I didn't want those. So Again, you could be creative here. You can think of a lot of different ways of doing things, a lot of different ways of looking it up. Another thing you can do with these filters is I'm just going to run an inventory sales history report. And with this is, this lets, we kind of set up so that if you're tracking serial numbers, you can find a serial number. So somebody found a stolen printer, they looked at it, it was serial number 101. I can just come up here to report and filter, and I'm saying my line item comment contains that number. So I don't even have to know what kind of printer it was. Like if it's a bike shop, you know, they might say, oh, it's this kind of bike, and then that could help you narrow it down. But here I can just say, hey, I don't care what item it is. I want to find my printer I sold that was serial number 101. So when I run my report, okay, it was a Brother HL 2070, and I sold it to Trey Anastasio. So I can give them a call and say, hey, we recovered your stolen printer. So there's some real practical functionality you can do with that as well. Things where you might get into real heavy, complicated filters, and I'm just kind of bringing this up, especially as resellers, that there's the audit reports. So you can run these sales audit reports. And how I like doing it is I like turning it all on and say, I want to filter by, filter audit records, and I want to do it by, what the date was. I can do system fields. There's some calculated audit records, what day of the week is, but I can filter this to really narrow it down. So there's a lot I can do to get it so it's how I want it. Same thing with tables and security levels. It's like, okay, what can a security level do? Well, I can say, okay, only give me, security level 5 or higher or whatever, so you can narrow down the report to take a look at it. The big reports people run, like inventory database, we have things you don't have to necessarily set a filter for quantity on hand greater than 0, because we've got this in stock only. And what basically that does, it just automatically puts a filter on there that says quantity on hand is greater than 0 or less than 0. So you don't have to do that, but you can do a lot of other things like last sold date. If I haven't sold it in the past year, I don't want it on this report. So, if the last sold date is less than 1/1/2015, don't show it to me. So the possibilities are endless on how you do this. And when people call asking us about reports, we're just basically in here hacking around, testing different things to give it a try. And the tutor's a great place to do that because it's a small amount of data, so the reports run quick and pop up very quickly. Remember, you can also, like in my transactions, I can come in here and I'm just going to hit insert, and there's some calculated fields. Like I can do day of week, where for day of week 1 equals Monday, 7 equals Sunday. So I can say day of week equals 1. How are my transactions on Mondays relate to my transactions on Tuesdays or Thursdays, or which is my busiest day of the week? You can do that. There's some other day of week reports you can run, but you can get pretty creative with how these work. And what Lynn is going to talk about a little bit is you can do these report settings and say, here, this one is filtered by day of week Monday, and I can put 1 so only register 1 sees it, or I can put 0 so all registers see it. And then I just come up here to my transaction filter, hit insert, select calculated, select day of week, say that equals 1, and go ahead and save it. I'll go ahead and run it. Okay, so I only had 1 entered on a Monday, but now I can come here to say sales for transactions, and I'm ready to go. It remembers all my settings there, so I can run that report. The other thing I want you to be sure to see too is going into the F1 help. It's great for reports because you don't have to remember, if I get to the right clicking spot, you don't have to remember what all those filter and formula operators are. We've got a list of all the different things and how they work. So you can come in here and remember, oh yeah, I can do exclamation point equal sign is not equal to, or the less than greater than. So there's a lot you can look at. Also, with any of these, I believe when you click them, and hopefully, don't know if that little window popped up there or not with the, oh, I think it did. Yeah, there we go. So it shows you that if you do \*, it literally interprets that as a star and not as a multiply or contains in the filter. So it'd let you search for star in a product code or something like that. So it gives you a little example on how to do it. So we're trying to make it a little more accessible. Keystroke is designed to be very powerful and flexible, and sometimes those powerful features add a little complexity, so we're trying to do that. But the help is really very useful in this for the filters and the operators. So with that is all I had on filters. So thank you for coming. There's going to be good more information about report queues and shared settings with Lynn next week, and I will open it up to any questions. And I don't think I muted everyone. Right, Nick?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending Keystroke Live. Same time, same place next week, and have a great